Hi everyone, and welcome to today's masterclass, a small business guide to Click Frenzy, Black Friday and beyond. I'm Cec Busby, editor of Kochie's Business Builders, and we're coming to you live from International Towers here in Barangaroo. Now, before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Gadigal people of the Ecom Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Today, we're diving into one of the busiest and most profitable times of the year for small businesses, online sales season. With Click Frenzy and Black Friday just around the corner, it's the perfect time to arm yourself with strategies to maximize your sales, boost your visibility, and stand out in a crowded marketplace. And to help guide us through this, I'm thrilled to be joined by online shopping expert Paul Waddy. Now, Paul is an e-commerce specialist with years of experience helping businesses scale and succeed in the online space. He's the author of Selling Online for Dummies and Shopify for Dummies, and the co-founder of Ecom Nation. So we're absolutely in great hands today. Paul, welcome, and thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be here again, Cec. Thank you for having me, and welcome to everybody who's tuning in.
Thank you, Paul. So let's kick off with some insights about the whole online sales experience. Oh, and remember, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat box and we'll get to them throughout the session. Now, Paul, can you give us a bit of a background on how Click Frenzy and Black Friday have kind of evolved in Australia? I mean, last year I think it was over $6 billion in sales just over that Click Frenzy, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, that weekend.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
a lot of money. Well, it all started really from the US. It was a Thanksgiving sale, and somewhere along the line, Australians got a sniff of it, and now it is our biggest. November is definitely our biggest month. But that week, as you say, alone accounts for unbelievable revenue. I heard a brand recently say that they were expecting something like 60% of their yearly revenue to come in that week. I don't know if I think that's a wise strategy, but nonetheless, it gives you an idea of how Australians have embraced it. And it's absolutely the biggest promotional week on the Australian retail calendar, undoubtedly.
So what kind of online shopping behaviour do you see during that period?
Yeah, so I think you'll see leading up to Cyber Week, it's almost Cyber Month now really, because brands are going earlier and earlier with their sales, and we have, of course, Click Frenzy midway through November as well. The pattern is really that consumers will just start drying up their spending a little bit in sort of probably from now to the end of October. Particularly as interest rates are high and people are watching what they're spending. So you'll see people just starting to save a little bit of money, hold back because they know what's coming. Then you'll see brands start to go, probably towards the end of October, they'll actually start some of them with their Cyber and Click Frenzy sales. So some will go for a whole month. And then the volume of traffic to websites will absolutely ramp up to a peak in that Cyber Week, which will be phenomenal. You'll see some brands do, as I said earlier, 500 to 600% of their normal monthly sales in 1 week. So it's going to be a steady crescendo up to this huge climax that is Cyber Week.
So what is the main opportunity for businesses? Also, not just if they're an online store, but maybe they're a physical store. Should they be getting in on the whole Click Frenzy Black Friday thing as well? How can they do it?
I think you've got to, and most people will. And why I think you've got to in some form, and there are different ways you can get involved, but consumers will have their wallets out ready to spend. And Cec, the issue is if they don't spend with you, the money will go elsewhere. So if you don't participate, will you see a lull in sales? Yeah, absolutely. But I think the warning is not to go too hard and discount everything and not understand your profit margins, because I have seen businesses do great sales in November, but when the profit and loss statement comes back, the profit was much less than expected. So I think absolutely join in. You can make a huge amount of money because there's going to be a lot of spending, but just apply some controls around the offer that you're putting out to consumers, because it can backfire if you get it wrong.
So you said you've seen some businesses that have come back with less profit than they've expected. Is that because they've discounted too heavily or they've put too many things out on the table for going, everything on sale now.
Yeah, the store-wide discount, I'm not really, it's usually that, like the whole store 30% off. Now, most stores don't have the margins that can support that, and some products have better margins than others. So I'm not really a fan of the flat 30%. But yeah, it is usually, so brands that get it wrong, they usually make this mistake. They'll discount without really looking at the margin on individual products. They'll just say, 30% off sounds good, not quite understanding if that's profitable or not. Then what they'll do is also increase their marketing spend because it actually is more expensive to advertise around that time because everybody's on Facebook ads, everybody's on Google ads. So they'll kind of increase their marketing spend. So as you increase your marketing spend and decrease your margin on your products, your sales will look amazing. But then you'll look at your bottom line at the end of the month and quite often get a rude shock. There are a couple of tricks to avoiding that scenario, which we might cover today, but it's just, it's ramping everything up. And more orders, Cec, means more picking and packing, more customer service. So your expenses scale as well, not just your sales. So we've just got to be wary that it's a lot of money goes out, not just in during that month.
Yeah, okay. So say I'm a small business, I haven't participated in the big online sales before. What's kind of the first steps I need to be thinking about? What should I be focusing on first?
Look, I would create a simple offer. So I don't like complex discounts, like, spend X to get Y, but then out of this and spend that. Too many levels of discounting, too many tiers can be confusing. So I would kind of look at your aged inventory, which means your oldest, slowest selling inventory. And I would do a tiered discounting structure. And you might have an inventory management system, you might have Shopify, you can get all of that data in these platforms. I would say, what am I holding the most of? What's my oldest, slowest moving inventory? And I would say, okay, what have I got to discount that up to get it moving? Now, most people listening will have stock that's a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years old, or at its current rate of selling, it'll take 3 years to move through. Discount that the most. So let's say for a marketing tactic, we could discount that by 70% because it's just not moving. So we might have a few of those at 70%. Then we move down the spreadsheet to the next group of products that's kind of not as slow, but still pretty slow. We've got a lot of inventory. We might do that 60%. Then we go 50, 40, 30. So we're just tiering the discount. And then our marketing says up to 70% off, which is true. We've got some absolute horribly slow movers that are marked down deep. And then we're protecting our grade A product. And maybe we're not putting that on sale at all, or maybe that's only 10%. So it's just looking at what you need to move and not making the mistake of just moving your best sellers, because your best sellers, they're already selling. If you need to mark them down, just go gently, but really clear that old age stock on the balance sheet and go your hardest. I wouldn't go too long, 2, 3, 4 weeks, they go stale. Maybe a week, discount for a week, but these brands that do a month, it tends to be pretty ugly. And just remember, pull back your marketing spend, don't increase it. So as a percentage of revenue, you need to spend less to accommodate for that poorer margin. So my little trick is kind of, if you're expecting a 5% increase on your COGS, or in other words, your margin's going to decrease by 5% on your products because you discount, take that 5% off your marketing spend so that it nets out at the same net profit at the end of the month.
Oh, that's clever, because then you're not out of pocket.
You're not out of pocket. So we don't ramp everything up. We just little levers in the business. Discounting goes up, so marketing spend comes down. And also, why would you need to spend as much as you normally do if you're 20, 30% off? If you're offering a discount and you've got a great product, your email list should be snapping that offer up. Your SMS list, you shouldn't have to spend a fortune on paid media during that time.
So is there a minimum discount you think that businesses need to offer at that time, just so that they can kind of compete?
Yeah, I think it's all about the position that you're in. So if you're a business that's selling, Reebok sneakers and Nike sneakers, a reseller, you'll see that your competitors will be on sale. So you've got to play ball in some way. So you have to do a bit of price watching and see what everybody else is doing, but kind of don't fall into the trap of feeling you have to meet someone else who's discounting by 30, 40%, but you've just got to price watch. If you've got your own product, let's say we've invented a massage gun that nobody else has got, well, we'd probably just go 10% off because nobody else is selling it. We've got a unique product. So you probably have to just watch what your competitors are doing, but also think about the reason that sales existed in the first place, which was to right size your balance sheet. If you've got too much inventory on the balance sheet, and I would say for a retail business that's importing stock, holding more than 3 months worth of stock, enough to sell for more than 3 months. If you're over that mark, clear some stock down. But if you're already selling out of stock and running out, then just be careful on how much you discount because you're running out already anyway.
Yeah. So it's obviously a very crowded marketplace during these sales events. How do you make your product or your service, whatever it is that you're discounting, how do you make it stand out?
Yeah, great question. Something to remember is that if you're leaving your run to Cyber Week and then saying, surprise, we're on sale, it doesn't work because consumers take a good 30, 60 days to have a bit of the purchase consideration period. There's this, the 95-5 rule, which says that at any one time, only 5% of your audience, your customers, are ready to buy from you. So you've actually got to just tease out that something's coming. And so you really want to go into what I call the hype phase, which is, probably in October, the 30 days before Cyber Week, really cranking your top of funnel marketing up, which means your awareness marketing, which is, hey, we're here. It's not necessarily selling, but we're here. So you want to fill your marketing funnel in October so that over that 30 to 40 days, by the time they get to Cyber, they've heard about your brand, they've done some digging, they've followed you on socials, and then they're ready to buy. So the selling occurs 30 days before Cyber, before you want the money in your account. Don't make the mistake of going silent and then, surprise, we're on sale, because you'll get your customers, you won't get any new customers.
Yeah, so that's one strategy, like making sure you've got that hype and awareness well before the sales season starts. Is there anything else that you would suggest?
Yeah, I think a lot of list building. What I mean by that is, what do you do before, people know you're going to go on sale probably, right? So a lot of people, you'll run your ads and a lot of people won't buy because you're actually in some instances saying, hey, something's coming. So consumers will just hold back. So what do you do? What do you want them to do during that period? You want them on your email list and you want them on your SMS list. And here's what I would do. If you're able to really focus on list building before Cyber Week, and think about what you might give them to join, like what are you going to give someone to join your email list? You might give them 24 hours early access to your cyber sale before everyone else. Yeah. I really like that idea. So you've got to give them something. So build, and then you might lock the website down, or VIPs only for that first 24 hours, whatever you choose to do. So if you can do that, a little trick would be to build your list before Cyber Week. When you launch your sale, email your list, SMS gets great results. Let those guys come in and clean out a lot of the stock, then dial up your ad spend. Because what will happen is, if you start dialing up your ad spend while you send your email out, Facebook and Google will take attribution for those sales, even though those customers were already going to buy from you because they're on your email list. So as a way of just being a little bit efficient, maybe launch it to your SMS and email list first, and then crank up your paid media to those other customers who aren't on your list. That should save you a few dollars and make sure that your sale's really profitable.
We've got a question from Michelle from Twigs Toy Boutique. She says, I'm not a fan of sales anyway, but the complex tiered sale, spend more and save more, wasn't great for me last year. What could work for me and my toy boutique?
Yeah, firstly, you're not alone in not being a fan of sales, because it means that we're getting sales at a lower margin, and then it can train your customers. I will say though, it's okay to participate in this discount now, and then maybe just leave it till like June 30, and then just don't keep going on sale. That's where it gets really risky. And I agree, I'm not a fan of complex systems, complex sales. what I would probably refer back to just sort of saying, okay, look at your worst inventory, your oldest, slowest, the dogs, the stuff that's just not moving, and then say to yourself, how many of those do I want to sell? How much will I have to discount them realistically to sell them? If that amounts 40%, 50%, 60%, great. Your narrative becomes up to 60% off. And then just work backwards from there. So attack your worst inventory with the highest discount, scaling it back with your best inventory. And again, let's say you're on Shopify or any other inventory management system, it'll tell you what your grade A inventory is. That's your inventory that drives 80% of your revenue. Leave that alone. If you have to discount it, 5, 10%, but otherwise leave it alone. Let's use this time to clear. We probably have to join in the sale. Let's clear all that aged inventory that's been sitting in our warehouse that we're paying for storage on.
So you mentioned the different levels of discounts then and pushing the dogs, as you said.
I love dogs, but
So what's the best way to structure that discount and to still make sure that you don't end up damaging the bottom line, you don't get that nasty surprise that you were talking about at the beginning of this?
Yeah, so I've got it's not easy, firstly that one. I've got a calculator that I built for my brands. And that calculator basically says, okay, in November, I know that Cyber Week carries into December, but I'm just going to say November, how much money are you going to make at full price? And the retailer sort of says, I can probably do, 30 grand or 40 grand at full price. Last year we did that. All right, great. So in my calculator, you say, great, that's at your normal 70% margin. Now, what are you going to do during Cyber Week? And they say, well, I'm going to do 30% off this, 50%. I reckon I can pull in an additional 20 grand in Cyber Week. And I say, great, at what average margin? And you work out, okay, all of these items, how much am I discounting them by? What's my overall discount? Therefore, my margin on sale will be 50% instead of 70%. My spreadsheet then, I realize I don't have it here, but it merges those numbers and it says, great, your margin during that period, instead of 70, comes down to 60. I drop that in my budget. I say, all right, well, that impacts my profitability by 10%. I'm just going to pull a little bit off my marketing, and I'm kind of just using levers to sort of say, well, I'm happy to get 5% less profit, but I'll get heaps more volume. There's no real right or wrong. It's being aware that matters. Just don't go into Cyber Week not knowing what your COGS will be or not knowing what your margin will be, because that's when it goes pear-shaped.
Yeah, because you won't know what levers you need to pull.
You're just flying blind, and then that's where we've all been there. You get the nasty surprise at the end and you're like, but I had a record sales month. Like, well, yeah, your bottom line doesn't show that. So that's a lot of businesses will make that mistake this Cyber Week.
So should businesses be focusing on their current customers or acquiring new customers during this period?
I think a bit of both. I would like to see more businesses get more than 50% of their revenue from new customers. And if we're going to do that, just remember that rule again, that it's unlikely that somebody will discover you on Black Friday, never have heard of you, and buy from you. Normally that's a 30-day period, depending on what you're selling. So if you do want to attract new customers, which I think you absolutely should, what you need to do is work 30 days back. So let's say at the end of October, and really crank out that top of funnel brand awareness marketing. So your job is to work customers or potential customers through that funnel in the 30 days before, so that by the time Cyber Week hits, they're in the bottom of the funnel, which means they've visited your site a few times, they've added to cart, maybe they're on your newsletter. All of that starts 4 weeks before Cyber Week. If you want to acquire new customers and you're leaving it to like 2-3 days before Cyber Week, it's too late.
So what about during that hype period? You spoke about exploring your existing database, like your own customers that you already have, but what about then using social or other marketing elements to try and attract new people?
Yeah, I think every brand these days should have 6 marketing channels minimum. And
that sounds scary.
It does.
Six marketing channels.
It does. But then you think about it and you're like, well, there's Pinterest, there's Facebook, there's Meta, Instagram, there's TikTok, there's email, there's podcasting. You can get there. There's YouTube, which is a massively underrated platform. So you can get there. And you've got to be busy. Influencer is another channel. So there are a lot of channels. I would, again, use influencer and UGC, user-generated content, really heavily. And here's a little tactic that I use. Not all of us can afford influencer budgets. A lot of micro and nano influencers will do it for free. That's like 1,000 followers, or even less than 1,000, or your best customers. So a little trick is to go onto your socials, and you'll know on your socials who are the fans, followers, customers that always interact. We've all got them. Reach out to them and say, hey, would you like to just do a little review of our product? Here's a $150 voucher. And I actually give them a little script. Say, hey, can you just answer these questions? What did you love about our product? What problem were you trying to solve? Tell me about your favorite color, a few questions. And then I edit that into an ad and I run that as ads. And so one of the challenge with ads is that people don't have enough creative. So lean into your customers, your UGC, get those guys to make your content for you. Just give them a $100 voucher or something like that, and then run those as ads for the 4 weeks leading up to Cyber. So influencer marketing is a yes, but don't feel like it has to be Kim Kardashian. It's just anyone of influence. And your customers all have friends, so they're all influential as well. So we got to be firing on all cylinders. If there's a marketing channel that you've been thinking about, get into it. If we want to nail this, we can't just be running Facebook ads, for example. We've got to be hitting those customers left, right, and center.
That UGC piece, I think, is becoming increasingly important for businesses as well, because of the whole authenticity as well. It really ups the trust level and the authenticity of a brand.
I think that authenticity is actually the key to all of this on socials. If I could tell you how many times I've seen a brand spend 5, 10, 15,000 on a campaign, only to see the reel that they shot on their iPhone in the warehouse at home or the garage at home, and that performs better. Anybody listening here who thinks, I'm not great at socials, just give it a go. You will be so surprised how many of my brands I've seen get viral clips from just shooting at home on the iPhone. Actually, the big mistake is people just not wanting to give it a go, or filming some UGC or founder content, getting minimal engagement on it and giving up. But guess what? We all started with no engagement, but it's consistency. So if you're trying to tackle UGC or get your own socials going, or you've been thinking, should I go live? Just do it, and do it every single day with consistency. It does work.
So we've done our marketing, we've got it right, we've got them at the bottom of the funnel, sales season's about to drop. All these customers are now suddenly coming to our website. What do we need to do to prepare?
Yeah, so we got to know roughly how many orders we're going to get. You've done all this work to get customers. They're going to be excited to receive their products. And that's something called the pecan rule, which says that the user experience actually can be dictated by the best or worst moment of an experience. And usually that's, particularly for e-commerce, that's waiting for your parcel. You've got to make sure that you deliver fast. You've got to have great tracking. Don't lie. In other words, if you don't have your product and it's arriving into the warehouse in a week, don't say it's there. Just say it'll be here in a week or whatever it is. Full transparency on that. Customer service, get back to your emails within an hour. I know that's hard as well, but get back to your emails within an hour. Better still, get live chat on your website, because people are ready to buy now. You can't have someone say, hey, I've got a question about your product, and you get back to them the next day. Strike while the iron is hot. Live chat is so easy to put on your website these days, and it converts often at 10 times higher than a non-live chat visitor. Get live chat on the site. Be super responsive. Get your parcels out every day the orders come in. Get them out that evening. And just make sure that you know how many orders you're going to get, so that you're resourced up to be able to do that. You're going to get a lot of new customers. Make sure you treat them very, very well.
So you mentioned chatbots as a great way to have that instant conversation with your customer to answer their questions. What are some other tips you might have for optimizing that customer experience? I know you're a big Shopify guy. What are some things that people should maybe be doing if they've got a Shopify store to make sure it's a great customer experience?
Yeah, I think things like countdown timers. I mean, so we're talking about the user experience now, but countdown timers telling people when the sale starts, things like that. Upsell, cross-sell apps, there's a bunch of them in Shopify. So if I'm buying this jacket, hey, you might also like this t-shirt. Make sure you've got all those bells and whistles ready to go on your site. The live chat, we can use Shopify's inbox, or you can use something like Gorgeous, or there's a lot of live chats in the App Store. I think the live chat is a no-brainer. Just moving across slightly on the live chat concept, on your socials, encourage people to chat. You can sell by chat in your socials. What I mean by that is someone says, hey, I'm interested in the sauna that you're selling. I use a sauna because I reached out to someone to buy one and they never responded. It's so easy to respond in socials. I use ManyChat. ManyChat is a really good app that auto responds to people in your socials, and you can actually promote your sale or promote links to certain products on your website. So if someone says, hey, I'm interested in XYZ product, ManyChat will come straight back to them and just put them on a certain journey to look at a certain product. So just be hyper responsive. Shopify side, product upsell, as I said earlier, cross-sell. Nice countdown timer telling people when the sale starts. Big, clear email sign up, stating what they'll get for signing up, VIP early access, the usual things. Make sure your site's loading under 3 seconds, 3.5 seconds, and those sorts of things. But just making sure that it's ready to rock and roll a week before Cyber Week starts.
And test it.
And test it, and test it again.
Yeah. We've got a question from Melanie from Acker's Lawn, I think. They're lawn specialists in Adelaide. My business works with a much lower margin than you were talking about earlier. We sit around 30 to 40%. What sales techniques would you recommend if we can't do those large discounts without losing that bottom dollar?
That's not uncommon as well. So 30 to 40%, you're probably reselling other people's products, and that's why you get the lower margin. Alcohol brands have a lower margin, furniture brands have a lower margin. So the beauty of ratios is it doesn't mean your business won't work. It obviously just means that instead of spending, 20% on advertising, you probably have to spend 5%. That's fine. You have to run a lean business. Instead of 10% on wages, you probably need to spend 3% on wages. So you're going to need, especially if you want to play in the online space, you're going to need to have creative that gets extremely high engagement. And I'll just quickly explain why. Let's say you have a brand that has a big fat profit margin of 70%, and they run an ad, let's say one of her competitors, right? And they have big margins and they just run many, many ads. They could get a click-through rate of 1%, which means all the people that see the ad, 1% click-through. Now, that could work for them because they've got a big fat marketing budget. For you, you have a smaller marketing budget because you have smaller margins. So how do you compete? You've got to get an ad that gets a 6, 7, 8% click-through rate. So you're getting 8 times the traffic for a smaller budget. So everything you do has to be amazing. So the key for you is, was it a lawn business? Was that
yes.
One? So what I love in that space is, on social media, see the guy go along and he mows horrible lawns. He's like, hey, knock, knock, I'll mow your lawn for you. You've got to hold yourself to that standard. You're not going to be one of those people that says, hey, here's our lawn, we're doing 10% off. No. That's going to get you 1% click-through rate. We need you to think about doing amazingly crazy things. Thinking about on social media, why do people use social? Not to buy, to be entertained and informed. So for you, the person who's asking the question, how can you entertain and inform? Put quite simply, any advertising that you do, you need to think about it going viral. So pick the best in your industry, which I think is that guy that goes around mowing horrible lawns and whatever.
I've seen that.
And just do as good as he is. If you've got to go viral. Unfortunately, you don't have the margins to throw volume at the wall, so everything you do has to be amazing. So you've got to become a creative genius when it comes to your advertising. And again, with 30% margin, you probably can't discount more than 10%, unless it's old stock and you just need it to liquidate it. That's, again, what you would use Cyber Week for. But raise your game. You can do cool things with lawn. Try and entertain, try and inform. That's the key.
So what about, I'm not a newbie, I've done these sales a few times before. What should I be looking at in terms of the data that I collected last time around to help me improve my sales this time?
Yeah, so I've got a template which I call the daily sales sheet, which tracks sales every single day of the year. It tracks marketing spend, and then it has a comments box that says, what did I do that day that impacted sales? Once you start doing that for 12 months, you just look back at that over time and say, well, what did I do last Cyber Week? Oh, that's right, I went a day early and I did 20% off. Didn't really work. But on the third day, I did a surprise extension to my SMS subscribers, and that really bumped sales. All you do then is look back and do more of what worked. That's actually the whole approach to kind of everything in business, is do more of what worked and stop doing the things that didn't work. Another little thing that you can do is make sure that you're testing lots of different things. If you're using influencers, don't use one, use 3 and pit them all against each other. And by that, I mean, see who gets the better engagement and then work with them again. If you're running Facebook ads, try and have at least 15 to 20 different ad creatives, and look at it. Turn off what doesn't work, dial up what is working, and do more of what's working. Oh, I did that ad where I was mowing the lawn. That got really good click-through rate. Hey, let's go and do another one where I'm mowing a lawn again. I know that sounds obvious, but actually just looking at the data on what's performing well and just being like, well, I'm just going to do more of that. That actually works. And refresh your creative. Don't run advertising over and over and over so that it's just people are sick of it. Refresh it. Change the ads. Keep it fresh. Change the messaging. Same with your website. If you've had the same banner on your website for 4 weeks, hey, get rid of it. Treat it like a store in a Westfields. Merchandise that website. Freshness attracts interest.
It's so simple, but so effective.
It does work. Like, just do more of what works and less of what doesn't. But we all get busy, and I get it. All of us get busy and we forget to check our ads, but you'd be surprised if you go into an ad, just say, hey, that really worked. I'm going to do 3 different variations of that again. Change my outfit, new setting, new lawn, new whatever. That is a recipe that does work.
Bit of topiary.
Yeah, why not? Absolutely.
Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's the create. Get the Edward Scissorhands out and run an ad on it. Love it.
So are there any common mistakes that you see business owners making during this sales season?
Yeah, there absolutely is. I think discounting too much is the one. We're running a business, right? So we need to know our unit economics. We're not just selling jackets or selling beauty or selling lawns. We're running a business. So that means you need to know your margins and how low you can go. When you work that out, how low you can go, then just offset that against, how many staff I need during that time, how much I should reasonably spend on marketing. Before I said bring your marketing spend down as a percentage, not as a dollar amount, but as a percentage amount. Bring that down just to protect that profitability. The biggest mistake I see is brands overloading on inventory, getting into debt to buy a tremendous amount of inventory for this period, only to then discount it at the same time ramping up ad spend. That's not a good recipe for success. And then unfortunately what happens in December is you get your freight bills. And so December starts to be a little bit quieter as the sale ends. And so if you've got this wrong and you're not flush with cash because you've spent overordered on inventory, overspent on ads, then you cop the indignity of having this huge freight bill to get all your online orders out, or a wage bill if you've got retail stores. And that's where it can start to unravel pretty quickly. Again, it's less about what I think is the right strategy for discounting and so on, and more about just saying, hey, just know your numbers, know what you're going into. If you can't know now what your profit is roughly going to be in November or in Cyber Week, you're not doing your job well enough, and you need to go back in and understand what your numbers will be and then create a plan that meets those numbers.
What about managing your inventory? Because what if the terrible happens and you run out of stock or you oversell?
Yeah, that does happen a lot. Don't oversell. Don't oversell. So that means count your inventory before. Have an inventory count done before Cyber Week. Overselling is a horrible experience. You refund. You can be sure that people leave negative comments. Don't oversell unless maybe you're manufacturing locally and you can turn around stock in 7 days. But if you're importing from China or something, do not oversell. So do an inventory count beforehand. There's no question. I don't mind selling out of grade C inventory, which is your slow moving inventory. it is criminal to sell out of your grade A inventory. Again, grade A is driving 80% of your sales. If you sell out of your grade A inventory, it means you've discounted too heavily. Your December and your January will suffer for it. And I see that all the time, particularly if it's going to take you 3 months to get it back in if you're an importer. So again, you'll often see brands who are moving through that grade A inventory at the start of the sale, and then they just remove that from the sale because it's got the interest, it's got some traction, it's got people on the site. It's like they've dangled the grade A carrot, and then they've taken that off the site to preserve it. So great, well now we're just moving that. Do not sell out of your grade A inventory if it's going to take you a long time to get it, because, you know, particularly founders will say, yeah, but why do they need to buy this jacket? They'll buy the pink one. They won't buy the pink one. The cream always rises to the top. It's remarkable how often you see the same top 10 sellers month in, month out. And founders want their old stock to move, but it doesn't. That's why the 80-20 rule exists. 80% of your revenue is going to come from 20% of your range. That 20% is called grade A. Don't sell out of it, and have enough of it before you go in, for sure.
Yeah. So what about partnerships? Are you big on partnerships during this period? Should we be collaborating and partnering with other brands?
Yeah, brands and influencers, I think. So Coca-Cola and Oreos came out last week. Probably we won't be able to get Coca-Cola or Oreos, but Dusk, you know, the candle guys did one with Allen's, the lolly guys. I thought that was so good. Just a natural partnership. I know in my ecosystem of brands, the brands that I work with are always looking for deals, and we actually have a little channel on our Slack workspace that says collabs and partnerships. Look, it might mean just, hey, who wants to exchange, you know, discount codes or, you know, inserts into orders. It might be more than that, where we're leading into cyber and we do a co-branded, you know, co-brand. Proud Poppy do a co-brand with an artist called Casey Rainbow. It might be something really formal like that. It might be that you're you've got a perfume brand and you collab and do a fragrance with an influencer. I love all of that. If you haven't got that ready in time, absolutely reach out to other brand owners who just want to do things. What does that look like? Just have the discussion. It could be an EDM. It could be a link on each other's homepage. It could just be, hey, here's some discount vouchers. Could you pop them in your orders and I'll do the same? It could be some content where I'll review your product, you review mine. Let's hit the collaborator request on Instagram and it'll get posted across both social feeds. I love that one because it gives you social views from people who aren't in your audience. But partnerships are massive right now. I recommend everybody look at them for sure.
So if we can just go back to something that you said right near the top about, for the customer, often the thing that they're waiting for is, you know, when is that parcel going to arrive in my letterbox? When am I going to get the thing that I ordered? So that's all about logistics and managing that effectively. So how can you do that? If you've never done Black Friday or Cyber Monday before, what should you be looking at now when you're thinking about your logistics partner?
Yeah, great question. I mean, firstly, it starts with how many orders are you going to get? So you've got to have a stab at trying to work that out. If it's your first one, that's going to be hard. I can almost guarantee one thing, and that's that you'll get it wrong. But you should be able to get it close enough to say, well, I'm going to do 10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand, whatever it is. And then you say, well, divide that by your average order value, and that's how many orders you should get. Then you sort of say, well, customer service, I know that I can do, or my team can do 12 emails an hour, which is, by the way, probably about right. Therefore, and I usually get 20% of my order volume translated into tickets, like some basic metrics. Therefore, I'm probably going to get 1,000 emails over that 3 days, so you can sort of roster accordingly. For orders, it's largely the same. I'm anticipating that I'm going to do 100 orders a day. I know that I can do 50. Great. I need 2 to 2.5 people rostered on, ready to go. If it's a 3PL that you're using, a third-party logistics center, they will often get it wrong unless you provide the forecast. Hey, this is how many orders we're anticipating that we'll do. Just want to be on the same page that you'll have all of those packed by 3 p.m. and that sort of stuff. But it all starts again with forecasting roughly how many orders you'll get. If you know that, there's really no excuse for you not to get your emails done promptly and to get your orders packed and sent that same day. And I do think that you should be still picking and packing orders the same day, like up until about 12, 1, 2, 3, round about that time. But You don't want to get snowed under and be dispatching orders 3, 4, 5 days later. You will get negative reviews. So just planning is key here.
What about shipping delays? Because sometimes if you're working with a third party, there might be those unexpected shipping delays. How do you manage that from a customer perspective?
I think most of the shipping carriers are great around this time, largely. 3PLs, to be fair, the same, mostly. If there are delays, or your warehouse 3PL has anticipated delays, or you're anticipating delays, a little message at checkout, please allow an extra 2 days for processing. I've certainly done that before and seen no pushback. The pushback is when you don't tell people. You just take the order and then you stumble your way through. But I think that if you tell most people at checkout that there's expect a couple of days delay during Cyber Week, I would rather that transparency, and I don't think that will impact your conversion rate in a negative way.
Post-sale. We've obviously attracted all these great people to our site. We've done the right thing. We've got a lot of buzz. We've sold lots of products. What do we do next? How do we make sure that we still keep on building and keep that momentum going? Because otherwise it's like you've had this fantastic crescendo and then blah.
Go on holiday. Have a little holiday afterwards. No, look, I think there's a couple of ways this could go, right? So if you're a business that's pretty desperate for cash right now, or and you've got a lot of inventory and you sort of say, I need to make X amount, I'm going to have to go on sale for 3 weeks. What will happen is that your sales will lag they'll fall off a cliff. They'll halve, basically. Like they'll take your daily average and halve it. They'll get really bad. So if you can, just stick to Cyber Week. And I know that sounds silly, but most brands these days go 2, 3 weeks. And the longer the sale, the longer the hangover. So if you can afford to, keep it short and sharp. Do just Black Friday to Cyber Monday. Maybe with a couple of days early if you have to. That would be okay. Maybe even a week is okay. The shorter that you go on sale, the less the hangover. If you can then also follow it up straight after with something special, introduction of a new product, introduction of a new partnership, something newsworthy, because it is going to be there's fatigue after that period. It is going to be so hard for you to stand out. But if you think about what does come after Cyber Week, you've got a couple of weeks there of Christmas shopping. So if you're a business that maybe can do some gifting, maybe that's the time where you start rolling out into gift mode. You do some, free gift wrapping. You introduce your Christmas range. Whatever it might be, have something in the barrel ready to go. And if you're going to go on sale for a long time, really expect that heavy hangover. So just try and condense that sale. Short, sharp and strong, I think.
Yeah, short, sharp, strong is good for anything, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Succinct and punchy.
Yeah, fatigue is the enemy here. People will be like, these guys are still on sale. Yeah. Believe me, customers know. They'll know the desperate brands. So, but nothing wrong with a bit of FOMO as well. Hey, you're going to miss out, Promote that. And that's why I said the countdown timer. Promote the end date. Let people know 2 days only. Bit of pressure in the valve is no problem.
And what about nurturing those new customers? Like you mentioned, a couple of ways then you could follow up after that, the sales, but how do we keep nurturing them?
Yeah, I think, hopefully we've got those customers. They're hopefully on our email database. That's where your flows become important. And by flows, I mean your email and your email automations to say, hey, welcome to the family. We hope you loved your product. If you're selling a product, I'm going to keep going back to this lawn product. Someone's bought a fresh batch of whatever you're selling, lawn. Like, hey, here's how to care for your lawn a week after I got it. Here's some tips on how to grow your lawn faster. You just bought this exercise bike. Here's a program of our 6 favorite exercises. You've just bought a jacket. Here's our new jackets coming out for spring. Whatever, follow it up with some. I like to follow it up with review emails, of course, but why don't you try and follow it up with something really useful about the product that they've just bought? You've just bought our gin. Here's our 6 favorite cocktail recipes. Like, don't just sell. Try and, I also like YouTube videos for if you're selling a product that needs an explainer. There's nothing worse than getting a product like a kid's bike and just being like, great. how do I put this together? Hey, here's thanks for buying the bike. Post-purchase, here's a YouTube video on John putting it together. I love that stuff. Just the little thoughtful aftercare stuff, it can also win your customers over. So a little tip is, after you've got them, pleasantly surprise them with something useful. Don't just upsell them again. Try and give them a helpful little, there's an alcohol brand I can't remember the name, they're in South Australia, and what they do is they send little videos as they're packing the order, like, hey, we're packing your order. Not on everyone, but if it's a new customer, if it's a VIP, they've got a camera there that says, hey, we're packing your order, I hope you love it, this is my favorite bottle. Little things like that. Don't make it all about the sale. Have a little bit of pizzazz, a little bit of attitude, a little bit of charm or authenticity, for sure.
There was a brand that won our Australia's Favourite Family Business competition several years ago, Smoothie Bombs, and they're mother and daughter, and they always do like videos of them packing the product to like some kind of crazy music, and they'll often be wearing outfits and they share it on TikTok.
Yeah, creative. And it costs them nothing to make, but do you know those actually work really well as ads? We know, everybody knows, people buy from people. The thing is, most brands don't want to do anything about it, but genuinely, that stuff is great. Have fun with it. You've got all these new followers, all these new, customers. Let them see into the personality of the brand. And if you're just another brand flogging lawn care, no, be different. How can you be different? How can you show your personality, your brand's personality? And absolutely, social media is a great way to do that.
Paul, I can't believe it. We're pretty much out of time.
That flew.
Thank you so much for joining us, Paul, and for all those fantastic insights. I'm sure everyone's taken away some great strategies to apply to their own businesses during Click Frenzy and Black Friday and beyond. So that brings us today to the end of today's masterclass. I'd like to give a big thank you to Paul for sharing his expertise with us. Big round of applause for him, and of course to all of you for joining us today. I hope you're leaving with fresh ideas and strategies to make the most of this year's online sales season. And remember, if you want more small business tips, advice, or inspirational success stories, check out our website at kochiesbusinessbuilders.com.au. Thanks again for joining us. See you next time.